They say the eyes of a child reveal truths most adults are too jaded to see. In the heart of a quiet Midwestern suburb, a 12-year-old boy named Malik Brown finds himself at the center of a whirlwind, an unexpected confrontation that will change everything. An ordinary afternoon spirals into a storm of taunts and disbelief when a jaded police officer scoffs at Malik's bold claim that his father is a member of the U.S. Army Special Forces. But truth has a way of cutting through the darkest storm. Little does anyone know that the real thunder is about to walk in. Malik Brown's world was small but full of dreams. He lived on the north side of Brookfield, a place best known for its century-old library and the meandering river that curved around the town like a lazy snake. It was neither a particularly wealthy area nor famously impoverished. It was the kind of American suburb where most residents recognized each other by face, if not by name. Neighbors waved families grilled burgers in their yards in the summertime, and children roamed the block until the street lights buzzed to life. For as long as Malik could remember, his mother, Desiree, had been the steady presence in his life. His father, Jonathan Brown, was often away due to his service in the U.S. Army. Rumors floated among the kids at Malik's school that Mr. Brown was more than just a soldier, as Malik often described him. Whispers about the special forces, about hush-hush missions and heroic deeds, circulated in quiet corners of the cafeteria. But without any visible proof, some kids teased Malik, calling him a lur or a daydreamer. "Your dad's not some secret agent," one boy sneered once in gym class. "He's just another soldier stationed at Fort Bragg." Malik had shrugged it off because he knew the truth. His father's involvement was more than even he fully understood. Over the years, he'd seen glimpses, quiet phone calls in the dead of night, discreet medals tucked away in drawers, references to faraway deserts and impenetrable jungles. He learned early on not to pry. Jonathan Brown's homecomings were always a mix of celebration and bittersweetness. Each time he returned, his presence felt larger than life. Sturdy and tall, with a gleam of determination in his eyes, he carried himself with a calm confidence that Malik admired. His voice was gentle, yet firm, his laugh warm and comforting. But behind the laughter, Malik sensed a quiet weariness, as if invisible burdens weighed on his father's soul. There were nights Jonathan would sit at the kitchen table, staring at old photographs or at nothing at all, lost in silent battles. Still, to Malik, his father was a superhero. A real one, not the comic book kind. And that belief was enough for a boy whose world pivoted around the idea that his dad was out there making a difference. It was a bright Tuesday afternoon when the first cracks in Malik's innocent faith began to show. School had let out early for a teacher development day, and Malik had wandered down to the corner store to buy a bottle of soda. He loved the tangy sweetness of orange soda, and he was even more excited because his father was scheduled to return home later that evening. On the way back, Malik noticed a commotion near the old movie theater, a place that had stopped showing films years ago, but still loomed large with its dilapidated marquee and weathered posters. Two men stood outside, one stooped with age and the other tall and menacing. The older man's face was twisted in terror as the younger threatened him with words Malik couldn't fully catch. The younger man looked unhinged, jabbing his finger dangerously close to the elder's chest. Alarmed, Malik paused, uncertain. He wasn't sure what to do, but something in him wouldn't let him ignore it. He rushed forward. Heart pounding, he yelled, "Leave him alone." A single moment of courage can have 1,000 repercussions. The assailant whirled around, eyes wild, locked on Malik. "Who do you think you are?" he snarled. Malik felt a tremor of fear in his belly. The older man, stumbling backward, took the chance to slip away, disappearing down the street. Now it was just Malik and the dangerous stranger who, despite being unarmed, seemed brimming with aggression. Malik's mind screamed at him to run, but something about the man's unhinged gaze pinned him in place. He tried to recall the self-defense techniques his father had taught him. Hands up, thumbs outward, knees slightly bent. Keep your stance balanced. "Who are you?" the man repeated, stepping closer. "My name is Malik," he managed to say. "You need to leave that old man alone. He didn't do anything to you." The man cracked a terrible grin. "You talk big, kid. You got a death wish." Malik's knees quivered. He'd never been this close to real violence before. But just then, a police cruiser rounded the corner, lights flashing. Relief flooded Malik. The man turned to see the cop car skid to a halt, and in that split second, decided to bolt. The officer jumped out, shouted at the fleeing figure, and gave chase on foot. Malik watched them vanish down a side alley. Breathing heavily, Malik prepared to walk home, still shaken. But as he turned to leave, a second police car pulled up behind the first sirens wailing. Out stepped Officer Martin, whose eyes swept the scene with suspicion. He was a bulky, middle-aged man, with a moustache that twitched whenever he was irritated, which seemed like all the time. Malik had seen him around town once or twice, but they'd never interacted directly. "What's going on here?" demanded Officer Martin. His voice was tense, heavy with an implied accusation. Malik explained what he had witnessed, but the cop frowned, skepticism etched into every line on his face. "You expect me to believe you, kid? Some black kid from the other side of town claiming he was playing hero. Save your tales for someone else. Where's the old man you supposedly rescued?" He ran away," Malik stammered. He was scared. Officer Martin rolled his eyes. "Right. Let me guess you also have a father who's a big-time Green Beret or something." His words dripped with condescension. Malik, emboldened by anger, straightened his back. "Actually, my dad is in the Special Forces. He's stationed at Fort Bragg. He's coming home today." A short, barking laugh escaped the officer's lips. "Oh, so your dad's in the Special Forces, is he? Maybe he's a Navy SEAL too." "Kid, do you know how many punks I see every day, making up stories?" Malik's cheeks burned with embarrassment and fury. He wanted to protest, but he found himself tongue-tied. Sure, rumors might have spread around school, but this was the first time an adult, a policeman, no less, looked at him with such demeaning contempt. The sheer disbelief was humiliating. Before Malik could respond, the first officer reappeared panting from the chase. The suspect was nowhere to be seen. A quick exchange of words passed between the officers, and Martin's colleague gave Malik a polite nod. But Martin only sneered. "Better run along now, boy. And next time, keep your nose out of grown folks' business." Malik trudged away, heart pounding and fists clenched. He was safe, but his pride was battered. He had never experienced such blatant disrespect from someone who was supposed to protect and serve. As he walked, his father's words echoed in his mind. "Stay calm. Keep your head up. Don't let anybody tell you who you are." By the time Malik reached home, evening had fallen. The sun had dipped behind the trees, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Desiree was in the kitchen, finishing up dinner preparations, her homemade chicken pot pie, which happened to be Malik's favorite. But all Malik could think about was the encounter with Officer Martin. "Baby, are you okay?" Desiree asked, noticing Malik's troubled face. He hesitated. "I'm fine. Just something happened on the way back from the store." "I'm okay, Mum." His mother's eyes studied him, but she sensed he needed space. She gave him a small nod and let it go for now. Soon the front door creaked open. Jonathan Brown stepped inside with a tired but heartfelt smile. Malik bounded into the living room, arms flung wide, and wrapped himself around his dad. Jonathan laughed, returning his son's hug with a deep warmth. Desiree joined them, and for a moment, the house was filled with the glow of family love. Over dinner, Jonathan shared mild anecdotes from life on the base. He talked about the training exercises, though, in vague terms, and a few humorous incidents with fellow soldiers. He kept the tone light and breezy as he always did, never giving away secrets or venting about stress. Desiree caught his eye and asked with quiet concern, "You're home for good this time, right?" Jonathan looked at her gently, then at Malik. "For a while, yes," he replied, not exactly answering. Malik noticed the subtle tension in his mother's posture. He wanted to ask more, but the happiness of having his father home silenced the impulse to delve into heavy topics. For the moment, life felt right. That night, Malik couldn't sleep. The memory of Officer Martin's sneering face kept intruding into his thoughts. Could it be that Martin simply didn't believe him? Or was it something more sinister? Malik was no stranger to the subtle differences in how some authority figures treated black kids compared to others. His mother had explained these possibilities to him, at times gently preparing him for an unfair world. Still, it weighed heavily on him. He wondered if he should tell his father. But Jonathan had just come home. Malik didn't want to ruin the night. Eventually he dozed off, lulled by the distant hum of cars on the road. Morning came too soon. The sun had barely risen before Malik heard muffled voices in the kitchen. Curious, he quietly slipped out of bed and tiptoed toward the doorway. He recognized his father's low, measured tone. "I can't talk about the details," Des Jonathan was saying. "You know how it is. This mission, it was rough. I lost a friend out there." Desiree's voice trembled softly. "I'm so sorry. I wish you'd never have to go back." Jonathan let out a sigh. "I know. But we'll see how things develop. I might be stateside for longer this time, though. The team is being restructured." A pause, then more softly. "I missed you two so much." Malik inched back to his room. He didn't want to intrude on their moment. But in his heart, a spark of apprehension flickered. Words like mission, lost a friend. The team is being restructured. They hinted at hidden worlds of danger and sorrow. Yet no matter what his father faced, Malik believed wholeheartedly in his dad's dedication to protect others. The next few days were a blissful reprise for the Brown family. Jonathan took Malik fishing by the lake, though they caught more algae than fish. They visited the local arcade, where Jonathan racked up a high score on an old pinball machine, surprising both Malik and the teenage arcade attendant. Laughter filled their home, dissolving the tension from Jonathan's long absences. But Malik couldn't fully shake off the incident with Officer Martin. He hadn't mentioned it to his father yet, figuring it was best left in the past. However, fate had a way of intervening. One evening, while picking up groceries with his dad, Malik froze in the produce aisle. Standing not 20 feet away was Officer Martin, scanning a shelf of canned goods. For a moment, their eyes locked. The man's expression hardened like dried cement. Jonathan felt the sudden stiffness in Malik's posture. "Everything okay, buddy?" he asked softly. "That's him," Malik whispered, pointing discreetly. "Officer Martin." Jonathan's gaze flicked to Martin's uniform, then back to his son. "What about him?" A swirl of emotions churned within Malik. Anger, fear, embarrassment. Finally, he blurted out, "He's the cop who didn't believe me when I told him you were Special Forces." He basically laughed in my face. The words tumbled out in a heated rush. He made me feel small. I think he might be racist, Dad. Jonathan's eyes narrowed. He could read the undercurrent of hurt in his son's voice. "Stay close," he said, placing a hand on Malik's shoulder. Then he calmly strode over to Officer Martin. "Excuse me." Officer Jonathan began, his tone polite but firm. "I'm Jonathan Brown, Malik's father." Martin gave him a cursory glance. "Uh-huh," he replied curtly, returning his attention to the shelf. Jonathan continued, not missing a beat. "My son mentioned an incident a few days ago. He said you doubted his word and mocked him." Officer Martin snorted. "Kids make up stories all the time. Not my fault if he's telling tall tales." Jonathan's jaw tensed, but his composure remained intact. "I'd appreciate if you showed my son respect. He's telling the truth. I serve in the U.S. Army Special Forces, currently stationed at Fort Bragg." Officer Martin turned slightly, finally focusing on Jonathan's face. A brief flicker of surprise passed through his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. "Sure you are," he muttered, "but no one's above the law. Maybe your kid ought to stay in his lane." Malik's heart pounded, but he felt a rush of pride and anger at the same time. Pride because his father stood up for him. Anger because Martin was doubling down on the disrespect. Sensing the tension, a few shoppers slowed down, watching the exchange. Jonathan squared his shoulders. "You have a duty to protect and serve this community, officer. That includes my son." Martin's eyes darted around, noticing the attention. Whatever man, he grumbled, turning his back. "I got no time for this." Jonathan gently steered Malik away. As they walked toward the registers, Malik exhaled a shaky breath. His father's face was composed, but Malik sensed the anger simmering beneath. That night, Jonathan and Desiree sat Malik down in the living room, the soft glow of a table lamp illuminating the tension in the air. "Malik, tell me exactly what happened that day," Jonathan said, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. Malik recounted the incident, the threatening man outside the old theater, how Malik intervened, how Officer Martin arrived, the disbelief and mockery. He told them about the chase, how Martin treated him like a liar. Jonathan's eyes hardened. "I'm sorry you had to face that alone." Desiree shook her head in disgust. "It's not the first time we've dealt with prejudice," she said quietly, "but it hurts every time." Jonathan placed a comforting hand on her knee. Then he turned to Malik. "Sometimes we need to prove ourselves more than others do, just because of how the world is. But you did the right thing, son. You protected someone who needed help." Malik felt a weight lift from his chest. The reassurance from his dad was all he had wanted. Yet an echo of doubt lingered. "Dad," he ventured, "Officer Martin looked at you like he didn't believe you either." Jonathan nodded solemnly. "Some people won't. They either haven't met soldiers or they have a stereotype of what a Special Forces operator should look like. Our job is to stay calm and keep living honorably." Despite Jonathan's calm demeanor, Malik sensed the storm brewing within his father. Soldiers like Jonathan rarely wore their scars on the outside. Their battles raged beneath the surface. For years, Jonathan had fought for a country that didn't always fight for him, and now, back in this small town, he faced an officer who refused to respect the uniform Jonathan wore. Days turned into a week, and life returned to a fragile semblance of normalcy. Jonathan tried to enjoy his time off, spending lazy afternoons with his family, helping Desiree around the house, and even volunteering at Malik's school for a Veterans Day presentation. Malik was elated to have his dad so involved, and he felt a quiet sense of vindication as some classmates who had once doubted his stories now saw living proof of his father's service. But the confrontation with Officer Martin festered in Jonathan's mind. One early morning, he decided to head to the police station to discuss the matter formally. Perhaps a calm conversation with Martin's superiors could clear the air. Malik tagged along, curious yet apprehensive. As they approached the modern brick building that housed Brookfield's police department, Malik felt a flutter in his stomach. Would Martin be there? What if things escalated? Inside the station bustled with quiet efficiency. A stern-faced receptionist looked up. "May I help you?" Jonathan stepped forward. "I'm here to speak with the chief or whoever is in charge of personnel matters. My name is Jonathan Brown, U.S. Army Special Forces." He flashed his military ID, which bore official crests and details, verifying his rank and station. The receptionist studied it before nodding curtly. "Take a seat. I'll let the deputy chief know you're here." Malik and his father waited in a row of plastic chairs. Police officers bustled by, some throwing curious glances their way. A TV in the corner played muted local news. The minutes stretched on. Finally, a tall man with graying hair emerged from a hallway. A nameplate on his chest read, "Deputy Chief Holbrook." Mr. Brown Holbrook extended a hand. "Come with me." They followed him into a small office lined with file cabinets and community service awards. The deputy chief offered them seats. "What can I do for you today?" Jonathan calmly explained the incident involving Officer Martin. The disrespect, the disbelief, the mocking tone toward his son. He spoke dispassionately, yet every word carried weight. Malik watched Holbrook's face, searching for signs of recognition or dismissal. When Jonathan finished, Holbrook leaned back, brow furrowed. "Officer Martin has been on the force for over 15 years. This is the first formal complaint of this nature." "I'm not here to launch an immediate complaint," Jonathan clarified. "I'd like an apology for my son. Respect. That's all." Holbrook nodded. "I understand. Let me talk to Martin. We take these matters seriously, especially when it involves a minor." Relieved, Malik and his father shook hands with the deputy chief. But as they left the station, they spotted Officer Martin lingering near the front desk, his posture tense. He watched them walk out, eyes full of resentment. The next day, Jonathan received a phone call from Holbrook, who informed him that he had spoken with Martin. "I can't force him to apologize," Holbrook said diplomatically. "But I told him your concerns and that the department expects all its officers to uphold professionalism." Jonathan hung up, exhaling slowly. He glanced at Malik, who was reading a comic book on the couch. "There's a process," he said quietly to his wife. "I'll let it play out." Yet something about Martin's glare at the station suggested this was far from over. Sure enough, a few days later, while Malik was heading home from a friend's house, a familiar police cruiser rolled up beside him. The passenger side window lowered, revealing Martin's face. Malik's heart kicked into high gear. Martin called out, "You behaving yourself, boy?" His tone wasn't overtly hostile, but it was enough to make Malik's stomach twist. He nodded mutely. Word is your daddy's all hot and bothered about me. Martin continued tapping the steering wheel. You tell him he better watch his step. With that, he pulled away, leaving Malik startled and shaken. That night, Malik confessed the encounter to his parents. Jonathan listened, rage simmering beneath his measured exterior. Desiree placed a hand on Jonathan's arm, sensing that he might do something rash. We'll handle this the right way, she whispered. But inside Jonathan a line had been crossed. Threatening a soldier was one thing. Intimidating his family was another. Days stretched into weeks, and an uneasy tension settled over the Brown household. Jonathan's leave time was running out. He still didn't know if he'd be reassigned or if he'd remain stateside. The idea of leaving Malik and Desiree behind in a town where an antagonistic cop patrolled weighed heavily on him. One evening, Jonathan received a phone call from his commanding officer at Fort Bragg. He stepped outside to take the call, the summer cicadas buzzing in the still night air. When he returned, Desiree and Malik could see the conflict etched on his face. I have to report back next week, he said quietly. My team is being redeployed. Classified mission. Could be a couple of months this time. Malik's heart sank. Desiree looked away, blinking back tears. I thought you just got here, she whispered. Jonathan moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I know. I hate it too. But it's my duty. The new missions are urgent. They need experienced operators. Malik swallowed the lump in his throat. But Dad, Officer Martin. Jonathan knelt beside his son, looking him in the eye. Malik, I'm going to do everything in my power to ensure you and your mom are safe while I'm gone. Deputy Chief Holbrook is aware of the situation. We'll have a written record of Martin's harassment. The uncertainty loomed like a dark cloud. Malik felt a flash of resentment. Why did his father always have to leave? Why did their life revolve around secret missions and indefinite goodbyes? A part of him wanted to scream that it wasn't fair. But another part, the part that loved and respected his father, deeply understood that sacrifice was part of the soldier's creed. With Jonathan's departure imminent, the family decided to spend a last weekend out by Lake Harmony, a short drive from Brookfield. They rented a small cabin, hoping to create some cherished memories before Jonathan's redeployment. On the second day of their stay, they returned to town to stock up on supplies. As they pulled into the grocery store parking lot, an unwelcome sight met their eyes. A police cruiser with Martin at the wheel parked near the entrance. Jonathan tensed. Let's just ignore him, get our stuff and go, Desiree suggested gently. Malik nodded, not wanting any trouble. Inside the store, Jonathan and Desiree split up to gather items more quickly. Malik headed to the cereal aisle. He was about to reach for a box of his favorite brand when he heard a voice behind him. Kid. Malik turned to see Officer Martin, his face unreadable. Where's your old man? Malik suppressed a shiver. Around he managed, trying not to sound afraid. Martin stepped closer, his presence looming. You tell him this. He doesn't scare me with his big talk about the army. We don't need a show-off soldier overstepping his boundaries, making complaints. I've been on this force for years. This is my town. Before Malik could respond, Jonathan rounded the corner, Desiree behind him. He spotted Martin, eyes narrowing. Is there a problem here? Officer Martin didn't back down. Yeah, there is. You're teaching your kid to disrespect the badge, acting like I'm some big bad wolf. I'm just doing my job. Jonathan's face hardened, but he kept his voice level. Your job doesn't include intimidating my son. Martin snorted. Funny how you think you're the authority on what my job is. You might be special forces, but here, you're just another civilian. The tension was electric. Shoppers passing by paused to stare. Desiree gently put a hand on Jonathan's arm, silently urging him to remain calm. Jonathan's voice dropped to a low rumble. "We're done here. You stay away from my family, Martin." Or what Martin challenged. "You'll run crying back to your base, soldier boy." That was the final straw. Jonathan strode forward, closing the distance in a blink. He didn't lay a hand on Martin, but the intensity in his eyes was terrifying in its controlled fury. Martin actually took a half step back, a flicker of fear crossing his face. "If you threaten my family again," Jonathan said, voice trembling with suppressed anger, "I will file an official report with every authority I can. The police commission, the mayor's office, the state troopers. I will not tolerate harassment." Martin's eyes darted around, noticing the crowd forming. Suddenly, he spat on the floor, turned on his heel, and stalked out of the store. A stunned hush fell over the aisle. Jonathan exhaled slowly. Desiree pressed close to his side. Malik stood there, heart pounding, a surge of admiration flooding his chest alongside lingering fear. By the time they left the store, Martin's cruiser was gone. Jonathan wasted no time. He drove straight to the police station, his family in tow. With an edge of controlled outrage, he demanded to speak with Deputy Chief Holbrook again. Holbrook listened attentively as Jonathan recounted Martin's latest harassment. The deputy chief sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of his nose. "This is unacceptable," he said. "Look, Mr. Brown, I promised you we take these matters seriously. But we need concrete evidence, witness statements or video footage." Jonathan gestured to the cluster of shoppers who had witnessed the confrontation. "Plenty of witnesses this time. I'm sure the store has surveillance cameras too." Holbrook nodded. "I'll check the footage. If Martin is found in violation of our code of conduct, there will be disciplinary action." Leaving the station, Jonathan's shoulders slumped in exhaustion. Desiree squeezed his hand. "You did the right thing," she said, softly. But Malik noticed a haunted look in his father's eyes. Jonathan had faced enemies overseas, stared down the barrel of guns and endured the desert's searing heat. But now, on home soil, a new battle was being waged, one that left him feeling frustrated and powerless. How many more times would he need to prove himself before heading out to Lake Harmony? Again, Jonathan made a phone call to a friend from Fort Bragg named Marcus Fields, another Special Forces operator who happened to be on leave. Jonathan wanted to discuss the situation with someone who understood the complexities of soldiering and the prejudice they sometimes faced back home. Marcus arrived the next day, his tall, muscular frame dominating the Brown family's modest living room. A broad grin lit up his face when he saw Malik. "You've grown, little man," he said, ruffling Malik's hair playfully. Malik beamed. Marcus was like an uncle to him. The two men retreated to the backyard, Desiree and Malik lingering nearby, half listening through the screen door. "Martin's a cancer," Jonathan said, frustration dripping from his words. "He's so sure of his power here. I'm worried about leaving Desiree and Malik behind with someone like him on the loose." Marcus crossed his arms. "Is there anything I can do?" Jonathan hesitated. He trusted Marcus, but he also didn't want to drag his friend into a legal or public relations nightmare. "I just wanted your advice, maybe a bit of moral support." Marcus nodded slowly. "I can stick around Brookfield for a while, keep an eye on things while you're gone. I have some extended leave. If Martin tries anything, I'll make sure the department hears about it." A surge of gratitude coursed through Jonathan. "Thank you, brother," he said, clasping Marcus's hand. "You'd do the same for me," Marcus replied simply. The final evening before Jonathan's departure arrived too quickly. The family enjoyed a quiet dinner. Malik picked at his food, not hungry, despite Desiree's perfectly cooked meal. A tense undercurrent rippled beneath every interaction. Even the house seemed to sense Jonathan's imminent absence, the walls echoing with a quiet melancholy. After dinner, Jonathan took Malik for a walk around the block. The summer night was warm, the sky strewn with stars. Streetlights buzzed softly, illuminating the familiar sidewalks. "You know, Dad?" Malik began hesitantly. "I'm scared." Jonathan's heart constricted. "Scared of what, son? What if Martin comes after me again? Or Mum? Or what if something happens to you on your mission?" Jonathan stopped walking, turning to face Malik. Under the soft glow of a street lamp, he saw the tears brimming in his son's eyes. He placed both hands on Malik's shoulders. "Listen to me carefully," Jonathan said. "You're strong. You're brave. And you have people here who love you, your mum, Uncle Marcus, and our community. Martin isn't unstoppable. If he tries anything, the law is on our side. And as for me," he paused, swallowing the lump in his throat, "I'm trained to handle the missions they give me. I'll be cautious. I promise I'll come back to you." Malik threw his arms around his father, burying his face in Jonathan's chest. "You better," he whispered, voice trembling. Jonathan held him close, gaze drifting up to the star-studded sky. He silently made a vow. This wouldn't break them. He would return, and they would face everything together as a family. Morning came heartbreakingly still. Jonathan loaded his duffel bag into a waiting car that would take him to the airport. Malik stood on the front porch, fists clenched, to keep from crying. Desiree tried to maintain a brave smile, but tears shone in her eyes. As Jonathan prepared to leave, Marcus stood by a silent sentinel. "I'll keep in touch daily," Marcus reassured him. "You focus on your mission. I've got your family's back." Jonathan pulled him into a quick embrace. Then he turned to Desiree, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead. Finally, he knelt in front of Malik, heart aching. "Be strong, son. I love you." Malik nodded, biting his lower lip to keep it from trembling. With one last look at his family, Jonathan climbed into the car, disappearing down the street. An emptiness took hold of the house the moment he was gone, as though the air itself had been sucked out. Days passed, then weeks. Life settled into a routine. Malik went to school, came home, did homework, and helped Desiree with chores. Marcus occasionally dropped by, checking in, sharing dinner, sometimes even helping Malik with math problems when Desiree was busy. Yet the specter of Martin loomed. At times, Malik spotted him patrolling the neighborhood. Their eyes would meet Martin's gaze, sharp, filled with a mix of disdain and warning. Each time, Malik's heart thudded. But no direct confrontation happened. In the midst of uncertainty, a bright spot emerged. The deputy chief's investigation had concluded, with store camera footage revealing Martin's hostile behavior. He was placed under an internal review, pending possible suspension. Holbrook had called Desiree personally to notify her of the outcome. The news brought Malik a sense of relief. Maybe now they could live in peace. But with Martin, trouble was rarely that simple. Late one night, as Malik and Desiree sat in the living room watching a movie, they heard the roar of an engine outside. Headlights flooded their window. Malik peered out to see a car idling at the curb, its occupant obscured by shadows. "Mom," Malik whispered, heart pounding. Desiree approached cautiously, flicking on the porch light. The car sped off, tires screeching. As Malik caught a fleeting glimpse, a chill ran down his spine. He couldn't see the driver clearly, but he had a sinking feeling who it might be. They debated calling Marcus, but by the time he'd arrive, the car would be long gone. Desiree reassured Malik that everything was okay, yet fear lingered beneath her composed exterior. The following day, Desiree told Marcus about the incident. He wasted no time. That evening, he parked his truck on the street outside their home, a silent guardian. Around midnight, the same car returned headlights, off this time, rolling slowly past the house. Marcus stepped out into the middle of the street, arms folded over his broad chest. He stared down the vehicle, unflinching. In a bold show of defiance, the driver revved the engine, then squealed away. Marcus took note of the license plate. The next morning, he contacted Holbrook to report it. The deputy chief promised to investigate. "Sounds like intimidation," Holbrook growled. "We'll handle this. I'll keep you posted." In a small victory, Holbrook informed them that Martin was on temporary leave while the review board decided his case. But the license plate didn't match Martin's personal vehicle. Suspicion still clung to him, like a sour odor, yet there was no direct proof linking him to the harassment. In the meantime, news from Jonathan came in sporadic bursts, quick emails or coded phone calls that revealed little beyond the fact that he was safe for now. Each communication was a lifeline for Malik, a reminder that his father was out there, facing unknown dangers yet surviving. One afternoon, the doorbell rang. Malik opened it to find 2 army officers in dress uniform. His heart seized, fearing the worst. Was this the dreaded notification of his father's death? But the officers smiled politely. "We have an official letter for Ms. Desiree Brown. Your father requested this be hand-delivered." Hands trembling. Malik accepted the sealed envelope. He called for his mother, who took it with wide eyes. The officers saluted and left, leaving mother and son alone in the hallway. Desiree opened the envelope carefully, reading Jonathan's letter in silence. A few tears escaped down her cheeks. He wanted me to know he's okay," she whispered, voice tight. "Says they've had some close calls, but his team is strong. He loves us." Malik smiled with relief, though the anxiety never truly abated. He wondered if his father would ever share details of these close calls. Probably not. Yet just knowing he was alive and thinking of them was enough for now. A month passed before the final verdict on Martin's review arrived. Despite the evidence, he wasn't fired. Officially, he received a reprimand and a 1-month suspension without pay. Unofficially, it was a slap on the wrist for the harassment he'd inflicted. In mid-September, he returned to active duty. Malik spotted him cruising the neighborhood once again. Dread coiled in his stomach. That night, Marcus stayed alert, but no suspicious car appeared. Days melted into weeks. Eventually, Desiree and Malik began to hope that Martin had learned his lesson. The tension in their household eased. Malik found himself focusing on typical 12-year-old worries, again upcoming tests, soccer tryouts, the new girl in class he secretly had a crush on. It happened on an ordinary Saturday morning. Malik was riding his bike to meet a friend at the park. The sky was a brilliant blue, the air alive with the promise of a perfect day. But as Malik approached an intersection, an all-too-familiar police cruiser stopped him with flashing lights. Officer Martin stepped out. Malik's chest constricted. He skidded to a halt, stepping off his bike. A couple of onlookers paused on the sidewalk. Martin strolled over, face etched with something dark. "You again?" Martin muttered, as though Malik were a stray dog. "You got a problem riding your bike in the street, boy." "This is a bike lane," Malik protested softly, pointing to the painted lines on the pavement. "Don't get smart with me," Martin snapped, stepping closer. His voice carried a menacing edge. "I think you need to learn some respect." Malik's palms began to sweat. He noticed one of the onlookers filming with a phone. Martin saw it too, which only seemed to inflame his anger. "Put that phone away!" he shouted at the bystander. Or, what the bystander challenged, continuing to record. Martin turned his attention back to Malik. "Your father thinks he's some big hero. Maybe you think you are too." He sneered, eyeing Malik's trembling form. "Let's see how tough you are without Daddy around." Malik's breath caught in his throat. Martin reached out as if to grab him by the arm. That's when a loud voice cut through the tension. "Back off, Officer Martin." It was Marcus emerging from his truck, which was parked a half-block down. He had seen the cruiser's lights and rushed over. Martin froze. His gaze flicked between Malik, Marcus, and the camera-wielding bystander. For a moment it seemed like the officer might still escalate, but after a tense heartbeat, he stepped back. "Kids obstructing traffic," he growled. Marcus stepped forward. "That's a lie. This is a designated bike lane. We have witnesses and video. Leave the boy alone." Frustration rippled across Martin's face. Realizing he was outnumbered and on camera, he retreated to his cruiser. With one last venomous glare at Malik, he sped off, lights still flashing. Malik exhaled shakily, relief mixing with anger. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. The bystander approached, offering to send the video to the Browns or the deputy chief. Malik thanked them, heart still hammering. That evening, Marcus drove Malik home. Desiree was furious upon hearing the story. She immediately contacted Holbrook, who said he would investigate again. Marcus also uploaded the video with the bystander's permission, forwarding it to Holbrook and the local mayor's office. Holbrook's voice was grim over the phone. "This changes everything," he said. "Martin is clearly targeting your family. I'll file for immediate disciplinary action." In the days that followed, local media picked up the story. Footage of the encounter went semi-viral in the region. Citizen-led protests against police harassment and racism erupted outside the station. Brookfield, once a quiet suburb, found itself on the evening news. Strangers rallied around the Brown family, outraged by Martin's misconduct. Under public pressure, Martin was suspended again, this time indefinitely pending a departmental hearing that could lead to termination. With videos, witness testimonies, and a history of complaints now stacked against him, Martin's downfall seemed inevitable. In late October, as the leaves blazed red and gold, Malik sat at the kitchen table finishing his homework. Suddenly, the front door creaked open. He looked up to see Jonathan standing there, duffel bag slung over his shoulder. An exhausted but radiant grin lit his father's face. Dad, Malik cried, jumping to his feet. He rushed into Jonathan's arms, nearly knocking the wind out of him. Desiree, hearing the commotion, appeared in the hallway, tears of joy lining her cheeks. The family embraced months of worry, dissolving in the warmth of that reunion. Jonathan's eyes darted around, taking in the atmosphere. "I got word that you all had some trouble." Marcus filled me in. Malik nodded. "Officer Martin, it got worse after you left, but we have proof now. There's a hearing." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "Both of you. You stood your ground. The department scheduled Martin's hearing. It was held in a large wood-panelled community centre due to the public interest. Jonathan dressed in his formal army uniform, medals gleaming against his chest. Desiree wore a simple navy dress, while Malik sported a collared shirt and slacks. Holbrook presided alongside the review board, which included members of the local city council and a neutral legal advisor. Martin sat at a table, a lawyer by his side. Tension hung in the air like a thundercloud. One by one, witnesses gave testimony. The store incident, the traffic stop intimidation, the suspicious car near the Brown residence. Each account peeled away Martin's facade of authority. Finally, Malik was called up. Though his voice trembled, he recounted every detail from the day he intervened to save the old man, to how Martin mocked him about his father's service. Jonathan looked on, heart swelling with both anger and pride. He saw the fear in his son's eyes, but also the courage that refused to let fear dominate. Once Malik finished, it was Jonathan's turn. Standing before the board in full uniform, Jonathan spoke plainly. I serve this country. I've watched brave men and women die defending our freedoms. One of those freedoms is to live without fear of harassment from those who swear to protect us. My son tried to do the right thing. Instead of praise, he received scorn and threats from an officer who abused his power. This conduct dishonors the badge, the uniform, and the community. Martin's lawyer tried to deflect, painting Jonathan as an overbearing soldier with a vendetta. But the video evidence, the testimonies, and Martin's history of complaints were overwhelming. The audience murmured in disapproval each time Martin's lawyer spoke. In the final moments, the review board conferred in hushed voices. The legal advisor cleared his throat. We find that Officer Martin repeatedly violated departmental policies regarding harassment, discrimination, and abuse of power. Effective immediately, his employment with the Brookfield Police Department is terminated, and his law enforcement certification is revoked. Further criminal charges may be pursued subject to the district attorney's discretion. A wave of relief and jubilation swept through the crowd. Martin, red-faced and seething, lunged to his feet, yelling, "This is a setup! You'll pay for this!" But security officers quickly escorted him out. The echo of his outrage faded behind slammed doors. Life has a way of balancing the scales. Word spread through the community of Martin's firing, and the once feared officer found himself ostracized. Neighbors who had once politely waved at him now turned away. Several officers voiced relief that a corrupt element was finally gone from their ranks. A month later, local news outlets reported that Martin was being investigated for other possible misconduct cases, including evidence tampering and undue force in separate incidents. The district attorney filed charges. Martin faced the grim prospect of legal battles, potential fines, and even jail time. As for the Brown family, they found themselves at the center of a wave of support. The local mayor publicly commended Jonathan Brown for his service and courage. The city council passed new guidelines mandating additional training in cultural sensitivity and ethics for all police officers in Brookfield. Marcus received a heartfelt thanks from many town residents who believed his vigilance had prevented more harm. In essence, Martin received the swift and undeniable hammer of karma, losing his job, his reputation, and facing the very justice system he once manipulated. On a crisp November morning, Jonathan and Malik stood on their front porch, hot cocoa in hand. Autumn leaves drifted lazily across their lawn. Dad Malik began, "Did you ever think something like this would happen? You know, coming home and having to fight another battle here." Jonathan gazed at him thoughtfully. I've seen war zones across the globe, but injustice at home always hurts differently. It's a reminder that we must remain vigilant, no matter where we are. Malik sipped his cocoa, reflecting. I guess I realized something too, he said, looking down into his cup. Courage doesn't just mean facing physical danger. It also means standing up for what's right, even when people doubt you. Jonathan smiled, ruffling his son's hair. Exactly. I'm proud of you. They watched as a few neighbors passed by, smiling and waving warmly. Malik felt a new sense of belonging. This was their home, and despite the challenges, they had found a way to carve out respect, safety, and dignity. Over the next few weeks, the Brown family settled into a peaceful routine. Jonathan informed his command that he needed a brief period to stay stateside to ensure his family's safety and well-being. The army, recognizing his exceptional service record, granted him an extended leave. Malik secretly hoped his father could be around for the holidays, an unbroken tradition they'd rarely enjoyed. Marcus, still on leave, decided to rent an apartment in Brookfield for a few months, drawn by the sense of solidarity he found among the townspeople. He joined local veteran outreach programs, forging new friendships and helping other service members reintegrate into civilian life. Meanwhile, the Brookfield Police Department, under Deputy Chief Holbrook, rolled out a community policing initiative. Officers were encouraged to engage positively with residents, holding town halls, neighborhood meet and greets, and charity drives. While not perfect, it was a step forward, a tangible promise that the uniform would be worn by those committed to justice, not intimidation. A few days before Thanksgiving, Jonathan took Malik camping on a nearby hillside. A small campfire crackled under a vast expanse of stars. The smell of toasted marshmallows filled the crisp night air. Malik leaned against his father, gazing at the constellations. Dad, how do you stay so calm? Even when Officer Martin was harassing me, you tried to handle everything peacefully. Jonathan exhaled, watching the swirling embers dance upward into the darkness. Being in the Special Forces taught me that reacting in anger can lead to worse outcomes. Discipline and self-control save lives. And in a place like Brookfield, it's about changing hearts and minds, not just overpowering someone. Malik nodded, absorbing the wisdom. I think I get it. Even though Martin tried to bully us, we used the truth, and it hit him back harder than anything else could. Jonathan laughed softly. That's right. Truth and justice have a way of catching up to people eventually. That's the real karma. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The wind whispered through the pines, and an owl hooted in the distance. For Malik, it was a moment of serenity and closure. The tumult of the past few months felt distant now, replaced by a sense of wholeness. Back home, Desiree had prepared a surprise for Jonathan's first Thanksgiving at home in years. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and a smattering of close friends crammed into the Brown household. The table overflowed with turkey mashed potatoes, collard greens, cornbread stuffing, and pumpkin pie. As they gathered around for the blessing, Marcus led a toast. To Jonathan, who fights for freedom abroad and justice at home. To Desiree, whose love grounds this family. And to Malik for his bravery and bright future. Malik felt his face warm with a mixture of embarrassment and joy as everyone cheered. The tension and fear of the past months melted away, replaced by laughter, storytelling, and the clink of glasses. Later that night, as the guests departed, Jonathan stood on the porch with Malik by his side. They waved goodbye to relatives, the tail lights of cars disappearing one by one. You feeling okay? Jonathan asked, noticing how quiet Malik was. Malik nodded with a contented smile. I'm happy. We got through everything. And I think I'm stronger now. Jonathan ruffled Malik's hair. We all are. Time has a way of weaving closure into life's most tumultuous chapters. Officer Martin's downfall served as a warning to other officers who might misuse their power. Brookfield's community became more engaged, coming together to support diversity and fair law enforcement practices. Jonathan's superiors allowed him extended time with his family, a gesture of appreciation for his years of service and the sacrifices they all had made. Malik grew more confident with each passing day. He joined the school soccer team, made new friends, and kept up strong grades. At night, he sometimes drifted off to sleep, recalling the moment when Officer Martin laughed at him, that flash of disbelief and disdain. But the memory no longer stung it, reminded him how he had stood his ground. It reminded him that a single boy's truth, backed by love, integrity, and unyielding support, could topple the arrogance of an unjust man. As for Jonathan, he continued serving both his country and his community. He knew that battles weren't only fought on foreign soil, they existed in everyday life, wherever oppression and bigotry reared their heads. But he also knew something else, that love, courage, and perseverance would always light the way home. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster of bravery, doubt, and unbreakable family bonds. Malik's journey reminds us that courage can come in small acts, standing up for what's right, even when no one believes you. Jonathan's dedication proves that a true hero isn't measured by medals alone, but by the depth of love and moral conviction he brings to each challenge. And in the end, karma has a way of catching up to those who choose intimidation and hate. If this story inspired you, moved you, or sparked your curiosity, we invite you to take part in our community. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more stories of resilience, justice, and hope. Spread the word, because every share helps us reach others who might need this uplifting message. Stay brave, stay kind, and stay tuned for our next compelling tale.